And this is Nashwa.
Yes, and we have grown up a lot in the time that we've been on BookTube. And I don't know, we just decided to have a chat. We thought we'd talk about books, but I don't know if that's going to happen because we have much to catch up on. And we both used to live in Pakistan. I moved to Canada in September. You moved to England
A year and a half ago.
a year and a half ago. I see. I didn't even know that. So we have a lot of catching up to do about how our lives have changed and how cooking and cleaning and
How we
working,
have grown up.
how we've grown up. Like there's no other adult here. It's just it's just us.
Yeah.
While if we've been reading anything, um, that's the conversation.
How do we bring reading into a life where we are very busy all the time
Yeah,
and we're learning to grow up and be adults and figure out things around us? And
yeah.
I feel like I'm growing every day so much. Mm, like it's just emotional growth, which was never like it wasn't even a thing in Pakistan. Growing emotionally or becoming, mature, intelligent.
And self-reliant also, right? Like there's no
Yeah,
like you feel unwell at home. There's someone like okay, your mom's there. You can have this that like you have
yeah.
when you're sick, you have to do all the work, you have to do all the cooking, cleaning, make chicken soup for yourself better with no other help. So, yeah, but okay, just like let me ask you, what is the last book that you're currently reading, or like how long since you finished last?
So I finished a book yesterday.
Yay!
It's an achievement because this is the I read just one book last year, and that
I mean,
was I was just one. I wanted to do like a 2020 rewind, and I was like, no, you can't do it, Risha. You just read a book.
one book.
You're a fake booktuber. But I started a book last year, like in December. Excellent Women by Barbara Pym. So like a sort of modern classic, and it was so boring. I was struggling so much, but then the second half just I was better, I guess. So I finished it yesterday, and I was like, another thing which stops me sometimes is like the name of my channel. It's like for the love of classics. So I have to read classics, but I feel like I'm at that point where I just don't want to read classics I just want to, that's why I want to read nonfiction.
You can. The possibilities are endless.
I can because I feel like I learn something and then I'm like so curious about that topic and I'm like, I want to read something about it, which will, I will learn something. And I'm at that stage where I'm like comfortable thinking about reading a nonfiction. So I hope I do that soon. Tell me about your books. I saw your video. You were like DNFing books left and right. I was like, I need that sort of bravery. I need to be that brave.
Yeah, I feel like so I have become one of I feel like I've become a very bitter reader. Like if it's not catching my attention in the first 5 minutes, 5 pages, if I don't like the audiobook narrator, I'm just like I do not have the energy to engage in
The
something that
patience to go ahead with this book.
at this point. So I don't even remember what I've DNF'd so far, but like last week, someone
I'm not. I'm not aware. Thank you.
you validated right now, Risha.
Yeah.
Um, so I yesterday I DNF'd an audiobook. It was called Period Power and it's kind of like about how your body works because I've been into that kind of nonfiction, like because we're not really taught anything about our bodies in school. Like we don't have that concept of sex education or physical. You don't get to learn anything about your body. Maybe it was different for you when you went to
Yeah.
medical.
I
But
think I. I think I learned it as because I'm a doctor, so I learned everything about that thing.
so you've probably learned, and that's because of your medical school, right?
Yeah.
Like for that, information is quite limited. So I've been reading those kind of books because I was like, it's good to know. And then I DNF'd the book because I didn't like the narrator's voice. I was like, it's just not working for me. But yeah, I also DNF'd like so many books because I'm just like, I can't do this. Like
I
if
wish I could do that. Dashwa, you don't know that's like a superpower that you can DNF a book. and be at peace with that decision, because there's like a nagging voice inside me, you're a failure, you need to finish this book. And I'm like, because I put down the Iliad by Homer, and I was like, I'm gonna come back, I will come back, I'm not leaving you. But I feel like I can't pick it up again. It's like so dense, so dense book, such a dense book. But I want that quality. I love that quality about you, that you can actually just DNF books and move on.
I feel like I reached that conclusion because when I force myself to finish bad books, it puts me in a slump. Like I just don't feel energized to pick up something else because I'm like, this was torture, and I feel like emotionally drained. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
can't. I just it's because of a logical reasoning that if it's going to put me in a slump for 2 more months, I might as well just abandon it when I can because it just yeah. So I've been DNFing a lot of books. Like if I had finished all the books that I DNF, I would have my book count at the end of the year would be much. But yeah, it's just something that I picked up over time that I feel like I cannot read books I'm genuinely not interested in. I
Do you
just
feel like if you have the physical copy at home, will you are you still comfortable enough to DNF it, because that book is with you, you bought it?
I've spent money on it, and I feel like it has happened. Like it has happened. I just end up giving it to someone or just like keeping it with me for a while, thinking about it, going back to it. But mostly like in Pakistan, I just used to keep them because
Mm. Because you
yeah,
had the space. Now we
I-
are in like small places, living in small
yeah.
apartments and flats.
So now my plan is that like any book that I start and I'm not getting the feel of, I'll just get rid of it. Like here, I like this thing. You can go to like the ground floor and you can just leave it there and someone else will take it. Like
Yeah. You
I've
can
seen
always donate it to a second-hand bookshop or just.
bookshop and I really like this thing that they have these like especially because we live in a building, we don't have it, but people who live in houses, they have like wooden boxes, like little free libraries.
Oh, yeah.
So
Small libraries at the front.
yeah, so I've seen quite a few of those. I was like always like I can just drop it off there, some benefit from it, like I don't have to be burdened with the book. But the funny thing is that I put books on hold from the library and I wait weeks and weeks, and then when I get it, I don't like it, this is going back, like I can't. Weeks for this to come in, and now I don't want to read it anymore.
Mm. I haven't been to any library, and there are like so many libraries close to me. I don't know. I'm so scared of going in. I really need to just. I'm totally an antisocial person. Like in person, I'm very antisocial. So even the thought of going to a library, speaking to a librarian, asking for a membership just scares me. So I'm like, I'd rather just go and buy myself a book.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that I'm also very antisocial, but I feel like that's something that I wanted to explore because there's like so many options that you can get, right? Like, and then it is kind of a daunting process. I was like, I did all this research, like, what will they ask for? Okay, name, address, need this and that. I need some sort of like a Canadian ID, so I had to wait for my ID to come in. Then I went and got it. But I feel
Okay.
like, but once you have your membership, then you don't have to interact with anyone because
Okay, that's plus.
you can order them online, they put it on a whole shelf, then they have like self checkout system, so you don't even have to talk to anyone. You go, you pick up the book, you check it out yourself.
Ah, okay. You've convinced me. I'll, I'll go now.
And convert you. Yeah, but the funny thing is that I thought that like library, if I have access to a good library, I won't buy books. But over the Christmas break, I was off for like a week, and every day I was going to bookstores, um, and then every day I was buying books. So I feel like the library hasn't really hindered like the habit, but it's just that I'm trying to limit myself because I only have like one small bookshelf here.
Yeah. The one thing I have been doing last year is, even though I haven't been reading, I've been visiting all the bookshops I can, because there are so many bookshops and such nice ones here. So I will just go in and stay in for hours, browsing through books, reading all the like the summaries on the back, and I think I'm finding a lot of nonfiction of my interest as well when I do that, because I in Pakistan, when I went into the nonfiction section, it was just like all
Politics.
these political books and just especially Pakistani politicians' faces on the on the front covers of books was like, I've
I
had
don't
enough of you guys on the television. I don't want to read about you. But I feel like here it's just such a vast collection of nonfiction, from like anything to everything, And
Yeah.
they had like a non-fiction section for medicine as well, like life of doctors and biographies of people who've worked in healthcare. So I was like, I need that. I want that. I'm interested in that. So I'm not sure how I will feel once I do buy those books and start reading them, but the covers and the summaries all look very, very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, reading is a journey, right? Like you read different things at different times of your life. I feel like I am primarily a non-fiction reader, but over the last week, I've been reading like Frederick Bachman's. Um, the last book I finished was Us Against You, which is the sequel to Bear, because the third one's out, and I didn't remember anything about the second one. I was like, okay, I want to read the third one. But like mostly, it kind of ebbs and flows, right? Like you have different phases in your life where you
Yeah.
want to, and you've like kind of grown. You've read so many classics. Like I don't know anyone else who.
Who has the patience to read classics?
I learned about the classics from you because you know the you have like a vast repository of all these authors that I would not even know about. Like I'm my love for Jane Austen grew when I saw you like kind of really into them, and I was like, okay, I want to try this out, and I want to see like how people read. But I feel like it's okay for you to kind of not
Right.
be that character, but like move in a different direction. And occasionally, you still love classics, and you can come back to them.
Yeah. It's always going to be a part of what like I like to read, but I guess I have branched out. I've grown up.
Grown up.
Yeah.
But are you thinking of changing like name? Is this a discussion, or are you gonna keep it like for the love of class?
Can I? Can I? And if I can, what would be the name then?
Risha. We just have Risha.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep it because it started as the love of classics. I think even if like I read one classic in I don't know 3 years, I'll still love them. I'm not hating on them. So why
Enough.
change the name?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
And another thing which I wanted to talk to you about was where BookTube is going these days.
I have. I know. Um, where is BookTube going? I feel like BookTube is as active as it was. I feel like it's even more active than the time that you and I have stopped and slowed down and making videos. Um, and yeah, I feel like people are still posting. There's people that I've been following for years now who are still posting every week, and I don't
They're
know how.
so regular. They're so regular as well.
Yeah, amongst like life changes and job changes and having babies and things like that, like people are posting 2 videos per week on schedule, and I wish I had that kind of discipline. But I'm also like, I want to be back on BookTube, but I also want to create content that is exciting, not only for everyone else, but also for me. And I'm kind of finding it difficult that what do I want to talk about? Like mostly I just do wrap ups because I like summarizing books, and I don't know what that means for me. Like I started doing these weekly updates, and for 3 weeks I was very consistent, but last week I read nothing. Like I was just finishing the book that I'd already talked about, and I was like, is this going to be one of those things that if I'm reading one book for 3 weeks, I talk about that book every week? I haven't
Yeah.
finished. So I think like for me, I'm a little bit confused as to like what what is the like how do I, because you don't just make for yourself, you make them for yourself, but you also like the engagement, right?
You're thinking who is watching.
Yeah, like you kind of want to have like an active contribution, like people want to see
Not
your.
just, yeah, I just don't want to post a video for the sake of posting a video. It has to have something in it. And if you're going for months without reading, are you relevant to BookTube then? Are you relevant to posting? Is it relevant your videos if you're not reading something? I feel like what I was posting the whole of last year was like visits to bookshops because that is what I was doing, and like sometimes travel vlogs, but I feel like those videos don't do well because nobody's here for traveling. But I I don't know, I was trying to incorporate my life into this channel, but this channel is about books at the end of the day. It's not about my life. It's about reviews and people want recommendations and I feel like a lot of videos or booktubers who are getting the views are the aesthetic videos. So they're nice to look at. They have like excellent quality, excellent audio. There's these like young content creators, I would say, who are like studying English literature in universities, so college. graduates and that age group. I think they are like less than 25 years old, and then their audience is also quite young. So they want aesthetic video, so it has to have, the video has to have a theme in it, you know, it has to be either dark academic or like cottage core, like it's becoming sort of like Instagram, it has to have a theme. And where do we as South Asian women who are trying to find themselves fit in that sphere?
I mean, yeah, that's a good question, right? But I feel like BookTube has always been like when I joined BookTube, I was primarily watching the younger booktubers, the ones who mostly make the young adult content, because I thought that's what booktube is. And then
Yeah.
slowly you find your audience, and you find like more South Asian booktubers, and then you find your own niche, and then you can talk about a book that you like. But I feel like that exists, but because we don't post as often as we do, like how do we keep that engaged? Like we still
Yeah.
want those people, and we want them to watch our videos and just discuss books with us, but because we're not posting as actively, like it's kind of that thing that I'm posting but nobody's watching. So do I post anymore?
And I also want to talk, I feel like I want to talk about books and what I learned from them, and then put it in my life or in my daily practice. So with fiction, I feel like you learn a lot of like social situations, you read about social situations and how people are managing them, and then you see yourself as a South Asian woman living abroad. And then she has her cultural values, she has um, the pressures of the society, and then she's herself as well, she's growing, she's learning. And one of the things which I find, there was a comment on one of my videos and it said, if you take off your scarf you're gonna look so much better. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Like,
And I mean, I don't wear the scarf everywhere I go, so sometimes when I post a video and I just put on a scarf, I feel like I'm fake. I don't wear it everywhere I go. I just, because I thought that internet is some place where the videos are going to be permanent and everyone is going to have it, everyone can look at them. So this was like my safety. And but if I go outside now, I want to be wearing it. And then I come back to filming and I put it back on and I feel like, where who are you, Risha? Just figure yourself out. That's another thing which was just like, I was like, can I take off my hijab now? Or will I be like those vloggers who took it off and then everyone was like hating them for taking it off? And then it's just like,
yeah, so first of all, that comment was rude. Like, they have business telling you that you look better, or it's just about accepting people's choices that you wear a hijab. It's a personal choice, and it's a personal choice in a way where you decide when you want to wear it. If you want to take it off, you take it off, because you have to decide what's comfortable to you. So first of all, the comment was extremely uncalled for. Like, just it's I don't like things like this, because it's just like you have to respect how people live,
yep,
and they have like they're decide what will make you look better. Like, it's just very odd, right? Like, you are a beautiful person as you are, and whether you that's not because of whether you wear a scarf or not. Like, it's
yeah,
just that. But also, like, on the point, like, if you want to take it off and you want to keep it on, and it comes from time to time, it depends on how you're feeling, what you want to do, then that's entirely up to you. Like, if you film a video without your scarf, it's just like, okay, something's different, but this is also you. And if you
yeah,
keep it, it's also you. Like, you don't have to fit yourself into one particular box to feel like yourself or how to please people. Like, you can just literally do what you want, because this is your channel. And if people have like something to say about it, like, people will always have things to
yeah,
say.
always have something to say.
There is literally no pleasing anyone, so it's entirely up to you. Like, if I feel like covering my head in some videos, like, it's going to be fine because it's my choice, and then it's not a choice that I have to justify to anyone, nor do you, right? You decide to film without your scarf. You don't have to justify yourself. It's
Yeah, I know. This it's just the comments sometimes are like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see like a Muslim booktuber," or like, "Sister, I really like what you're doing with the job," and I'm like, "Where are these people coming from?
yeah,
What's happening?" I'm not here to promote the hijab. I'm here to talk about books. But then there's always going to be just random people who think that there's like a hidden agenda behind me
yeah.
coming here. But there's not. But
But I also feel like it's not like you're wearing the hijab and making content about just Islamic books, right? Like
no,
you're all kinds
far
of
from it.
you're reading all kinds of books. So I feel like that's also because I mean, I kind of feel like people want to relate to you because maybe they're like they wear hijab themselves and they kind of want to see someone online who has a large following and talks about books and has a channel, and then they kind of want to identify with you. But that doesn't really,
No, it was just all guys, Rashwa. It was all guys.
I don't know.
They don't. I don't think they want to follow me.
Mean, then that's just it's also like I have so many debates about men and how they like perceive women with my husband. I'm like, why do guys look at women differently? Like, why do you have to be so? For that, my argument would be like they just want to see like their perception of a sweet, decent, because
Shy.
shy, something that they would prefer, and then because it's just a perception that they live by that if someone is dressed differently, not wearing a scarf, like wearing a different kind of like outfit, then they would be like that person's not very, she's Muslim but not a real Muslim because she's, so I
Mm.
feel about men and their perceptions, and the fact that they can tell us that is part of the problem. Because I mean, I wish I had that kind of confidence in life to tell people that they would look better.
Yeah, man. So
Yeah,
I guess is there a non-fiction about this, Nashwa?
you can read, let me recommend Headscarves and Hymens by Mona Al-Tahawi. So it might not necessarily be about this topic, but it's basically Mona Al-Tahawi is an Egyptian writer, and she has been like a feminist protester and journalist all her life. And she basically goes through the cultural attitudes towards women and their sexuality and like if they're wearing a hijab or not. And it's a very short book, but it's really, really interesting about like how women and their identity is perceived primarily in Middle Eastern countries. But fascinating, fascinating.
Okay. I think I remember you talking about it on your channel as well.
I think I must have mentioned it. It was just one of those books that, like, when I started it, it was too serious. Then I had to put, and then I didn't DNF it. Like, it was a temporary DNF. I was like, I'm going to come back to this one because I want to read it, but the time in my life doesn't really. I
Mm.
just focus on it at the time, and I was like, I'll put it down for
I'll
another
come
time.
back to it. Yeah.
I'll come back to it. Like, that's not a DNF.
Yeah.
That's just like it, not now.
Not now. And I feel like with where you are at life, sometimes you want the books you're reading to reflect that as well because you are learning as you're reading. And sometimes, if the book is like about like an opposite topic, which is not a part of your sphere at the moment, you just like it, but would want to come back to it like maybe later.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I've started reading more intentionally, which kind of ties into the whole DNF factor, which is like I want to be thoroughly entertained by a story and fully absorbed in it, or I want to learn something from it. Like I'm not reading for nothing. Like it's
Mm. It should
like
give me back something.
yeah, it should let me give me back something because I'm like yeah, here the Prince Harry book is everywhere. I'm sure it's everywhere in England too.
Ah, it is.
I have so much about it.
I don't want to read it.
I don't want to read it. Like it's just everywhere. Every bookstore I go to, it's just constantly. And I'm just like my friend asked me, she's like, "What are your 2 cents on it?" And I was like, "It's just I don't care about the royal family. Genuinely, like don't care because it's not like they're bad or they're problematic and they've done this and that and they've been racist. Like part of it might be true, part of it like I just don't care about it. Like it doesn't apply to my life. On the day that I was flying to Canada, like the Queen had passed away on that day, and everyone's like, "You're gonna remember this day because the Queen, she passed away." And when I came to Canada, like all the flags are half mast in the morning of the Queen, and I was like, "Why is this? Oh, okay." But then also like I genuinely don't care, right? Like I'm not going to watch the Harry and Meghan. Like the Oprah interview was a little bit like I know about it through memes. Then
Yeah,
there's
it's everywhere on social media.
And then there's like The Crown, which I watched 2 episodes of, and I was like, it's just not for me. So, and now the Prince Harry book, it's everywhere, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to read this. Like, it's just I'm more intentional about like whatever,
Reading now.
and it's not like the most popular book because then I would get Harry's book.
It is like the best selling book at the moment, but no, I don't want to read it as well. I mean,
But
uh-uh.
why don't you want to read it?
Because it's about this dude who's a prince. I don't care.
Exactly, right? Nothing to you. It adds no knowledge or value.
No. I mean,
Yeah,
it's his perspective of what happened, and we've seen a lot of that on television and news already. And I've heard snippets because they keep coming on TikTok of what he's talking about, and I'm like, if this is what the book has, then no, I'm not never. I think I'm never gonna read that book.
probably not. No. I feel like also because like I feel like South Asian people have such a fascination with Diana.
Oh
Like
my
I
gosh,
romanticize her life, and then you think about it, like Diana was very sad. She had a very miserable life, and her husband was in
I
love with.
did watch The Crown, by the way.
You did. And how?
The only reason I did is because I'm in the UK, and I was like, I need to know what happened because I had no idea.
This
It's
is very.
like I
This,
need to know the history here.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, but I feel like it's your like if people want to read it. I'm not saying if you are genuinely interested in it, you shouldn't. Pick it. Just that I am more intentional about what I want to read
I feel like there are bigger problems in the world happening right now than
than.
than what happened there, and those there should be books about that, and those should be the topics of discussion rather
Yeah.
than. I mean, I feel like so much is happening, and as I meet a lot of people now, like different people from different spheres of life, from different countries, I feel like everyone has so many problems, and we just are pinpointing our problems when we want to discuss them, and we just are narrowing our minds. And even when it comes to books, I feel like I was very. That's another thing I said in one of my videos, which which just I was bombarded with comments because I said I don't want to read books by white men exclusively. And
Fair enough. Makes sense.
I want to hear other voices now. I want to hear a South Asian man write, or like an African woman write, or just anyone. Why does it always has to be a white man from a specific period? And then the comments was just like so fun. Me and my husband, we were just scrolling down and just reading through all the fire. And I was so happy because a lot of my followers were like defending me and my statement on my behalf, because they were, I thought, more emotionally available or intelligent. They they understood what I meant, and they were actually explaining it way better than I did in my video, because a lot of history gets unwritten or is left unspoken because of who writes history. And with colonization of the UK and France everywhere in the world, a
Yeah.
lot of history has been left unsaid.
Yeah.
So if there are some writers today or earlier who were courageous enough to write something, I think those voices need to be listened to today,
Yeah.
and they will give us an input into what really happened.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah, on that note, I just read a book. This was last month or a couple of weeks ago. It's called Africa is Not a Country. And it talks about exactly what you're mentioning. And if you're growing into nonfiction, you want to read more, you want to learn, and you want to kind of like decolonize your perspective a little bit. This is a book by a Nigerian author who basically talks about the harm that colonizers did in terms of like Western messaging, like the whole concept of like giving aid to Africa because they're poor, like that, like it's
Yeah.
so harmful to people in Africa because they're treated like charity cases. And you kind of look at the whole continent as one, where there's 54 individual countries. So that was like a really really eye-opening book. It's also equally entertaining, really really funny, and like that's the stuff that I want to read too. Like I don't want to read about like African colonization by a British author. It gives
Yeah.
me nothing. But it's
Yeah.
just like how they say something like history is always told by the winners, right? Like you need someone else's perspective on what happened. So I do like, this is what I'm also trying to do. Like the nonfiction that I'm picking up, I want to be intentional. Like I picked up a book. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it, but I'll try to look for an ebook because it has to go back to the library at some point, and I'm just like too entertained with everything else. But it's called the British Museum, which is a take on the British Museum, and it's all about the
Oh,
stolen treasure.
yeah.
The
Oh, the
stolen.
stolen treasures, yes.
So that's what I was really interested in. Except like with work and everything, I might not be able to get to it. But just one that I'll keep on my radar, like for a later point. But exactly what you said. Like I don't want to read um, books specifically by white people, or not even white people, but told from a certain perspective. Like
Yeah.
nobody justify colonization. And even like my reading journey in Canada has been trying to look for indigenous authors who are
Yep.
speaking indigenous stories, because so much happened here. And it's the part of history that you don't even get to learn about, because
No.
and then here, there's like interesting concepts. Like in my work, before starting a meeting, they're like, we have to acknowledge the land, which is basically like you have to acknowledge before colonization, like who lived on this
That's
land.
really interesting.
It's an interesting concept, but I feel like there's also debates about how performative it is, right? Like
I mean,
it's
is
better.
it?
It
Does
can
it?
be. And it's, I feel like, I mean, from my perspective on it, it's something new, and I feel like it's important. But at the same time, like we have to ask those communities how they feel about it, right?
Mm.
Like, are you just acknowledging them the land, or are you giving them any more rights, or are you making their lives better? And the debate so far is that like they're not happy with the government of Canada. They're not happy with how they're being treated. Like there's indigenous girls and women who are like kidnapped and murdered every year. Like there's thousands of them, and if their lives are not getting better, we have to kind of see like if the land acknowledgement is just performative, or is it,
Is there a point to it?
yeah, is there a point to it, is it changing the lives? I don't know, we have really loud neighbors. I was just like, that's so loud. But yeah, so is it like adding to the lives of the natives, the people who used to live here? And again, I'm no one to speak to that, but I just kind of think that this is nice to see everywhere that you acknowledge the communities who live there, but we should also see how they feel about it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like every country, every culture has its problems, and they are not evident when you walk into a bookshop. The books on the front are, especially when I go here to a bookshop in the UK, it's very different from when I went to a bookshop in Dubai, because I felt like Dubai was just giving us everything, like books by Canadian writers, American writers, because it had like an Arabic section, and I didn't go there because I don't read Arabic, but they were giving us everything, all the authors. But when I go to a bookshop here in the UK, it's just British writers now. They're everywhere, and I have to actively go to sections to search for books from other people. And and my plan is that next time I go to Pakistan, I'm gonna browse through books there, because the book collection there is so different. And I'm sure you have noticed this as well. Like bookstores everywhere, there's just different. The readers are different. The books they put forward are different, and but sometimes you just want to handpick what you want to read. And with us trying to, um, I'm just sorry,
I,
distracted by the comments now. I'm like,
we
what
have
just happened? So I went to I recently traveled to Azerbaijan, so part of the world I've never been to before, and I obviously went to a bookshop straight away. And a lot of books were in Turkish or Azerbaijani or Russian, but there was a small English section, and I was asking them for books by their local writers which have been written in English, because I wanted to see what they have to say about what happened, because that is a war torn country as well. It was taken over by Russia, and for years it was like under Russian power, and now it has the freedom it deserves. But what do the people have to say is what I want to know. I don't want to know what history books have to say, but actually local writers from that place, how do they describe what actually happened. So I feel like those books, I'm not sure if I'll be able to find them here in the UK in bookstores, because that's a very niche um, type of books which not a lot of readers here would be interested in.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, over here, so there's like a chain of bookstores which kind of I always like laugh about it that this is the Said Book Bank of Toronto. Like stores where it's just like what's new and what's flashy and what's kind of the most popular one. And then there's like you go to the more independent bookstores, like bookstores owned by like black and indigenous people, and then you have the rare bookstores, like, and those really give you a different perspective. And like initially when I came, everyone's like, go to Chapters. Chapters is the equivalent of State Book Bank. And I'm like, I walked through it and I'm like, I'm not interested because it's the popular stuff. It's the, it's what's selling, Prince Harry's
New,
book,
yeah,
everything.
new publishing. It's
Yeah,
just like the publishers doing their jobs.
yeah, basically. But it I think it really does depend like which store you're going to and kind of like finding what you need. But here I would say that it's a little bit different. That like yes, of course, Canadian authors are kind of they're not like as heavily promoted because I feel like it's so close to America that North American authors are just American authors kind of make it to the front lines as well.
Yeah.
But I have seen like the most popular Pakistani authors. Like I've seen Kamila Shamsi's new book on the shelves. And I was like, okay, that's interesting because at least it's there, like on the table. As soon as you walk in, like it's a different. But then that always makes it under the international, the international book
Then, yeah.
for those. So I feel like even from like if they're promoting international fiction, there's a little bit of that thing that who is going to sell more. You'll see Mohsin Hamid's new book. You'll see Kamila Shams.
Yeah, Austin Hammers is everything everywhere.
So you'll see those, and those are like I did read Mohsin Hamid's new book, The Last White Man. I
How is
haven't.
it?
It's a star read for me. I listened to it as an audiobook. It's basically about like white people essentially, and their color of their skin is changing, and they end up being black, and they are or they're being like South Asian. Like basically, it's about the transformation of like skin and identities, and it's just I always find it very odd, like writing as a Pakistani man, like how are you speaking to a white audience? And it to me
Does
it
it
feels
does it look like he's speaking to the white audience in it?
yeah, mostly because I feel like it's just like the last white band. Like how many Pakistanis like you and me would be interested in reading about? Like I still picked it up from the last, refused to pay for it, but also it's also one of those things like it's just a lot of Pakistani readers do this, right? Like because they want to sell well and it's a business at the end of the day and they want to cater to a different market. It kind of does feel like a little bit like catering to a white audience, and that's like Western audience, not even, and that's something that I'm not entirely comfortable with reading. Like if I want to read Pakistani books, I want to read like authentic Pakistani experiences. I want to talk about like I want to read books that are like based in Islamabad, and I've never read a book that's based in Islamabad. Like I will have this gripe till day I die that there is one decent book written, set
That's
in
why
a
you have to write that book.
I have to write it. So it's just that like I feel like Kamila Shamsi and these are known names in the Western communities and people know of them, but they don't really speak to authentic Pakistani experiences from what I feel like.
I think a lot of the authors which make it in the Western publishing are the ones who are either born in the Western countries, who are like Pakistani by origin, like their parents were from Pakistan, they're immigrants as well. And then they have the probably the like the facilities available to get in touch with the publishing teams and stuff, but then their perspective is not the same as a person who is born in Pakistan, because
Yes.
they see the world in a completely different light. I feel like I think we are in the middle now. We've
We
been there and now we've moved here, but the people who were born here, they just see the world a bit different, and I don't blame them. It's completely normal because this is completely different than how things are back home. So I sometimes joke about it. They're a different breed. We are a different breed, and the people who are in Pakistan, they're a completely different breed as well.
definitely
So they are all like, I feel like the people in Pakistan's perspective is so small,
narrow.
so narrow. I mean, they don't want to look outside. They don't want to peek outside. Just they don't want to have a look outside. They just want to close their eyes to everything else that's happening, which is which is a big problem because they will never grow. They will never. They will just stay the same basically, and
Yeah.
it's a huge problem in Pakistan. I personally think we're
Yeah.
going political now, Nashwa, but um, But
What
because we
what
were saying, because those writers are from like a different breed. They were either born here, they know a little bit of Pakistan, maybe they went back and forth, but they haven't been present. And I feel like a lot of people who do get the opportunity to end up publishing books are then these people who live abroad.
So let me ask you this. If these people live abroad and they have a different perspective, is it fair for them to write about Pakistani experiences? Because then if they're born in England, then they're British. If they're born in Canada, they're Canadians. Like, should they speak to authentic Pakistani experiences then? Because our experiences will never be theirs, right? Like theirs will never be ours. We are somewhere in the middle where we see the life there, and it's not as like, yes, there is a lot of small perspectives and the unwillingness to look outside, but there are people who will expand. Like there are people, like for example, who are willing to open up their minds and have these discussions with you. But I kind of find it very like I find it a little bit odd that the people who are writing from a Pakistani perspective are capitalizing on the bad things happening in Pakistan. Like there was like a few years where they're just talking about terrorism and incidents and bomb blasts, and like should they be then capitalizing on all the horrible things happening in Pakistan, or is there a normal story of like people trying to live?
Normal lives in Pakistan as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of
I, I personally feel I haven't read from a lot of Pakistani writers of the current time, so I wouldn't be a
hmm.
good judge of that. But you have read a lot of these writers.
Yeah,
Um,
I
but
can't
I
do it.
feel like if they are writing from from the perspective of a person who has been living in Pakistan, they definitely need to research more if they want to write something like that. But I feel like it's a they haven't seen what we have seen, or what I feel like we are not seeing what's happening now. So the people who are back home, they are experiencing different things than we are at the moment. So if we write a book, I'm sure people will judge us as well for being
Yeah,
non-authentic, because
yeah.
we're not there now. And every day something's happening, every day is changing, the country is changing every day, so the people are changing with it every day.
Hmm.
And if we have missed 5 months I mean, for you, if you've missed 5 months of what's actually happened in Pakistan, and I've missed 3 years, so four actually. Gosh.
Time flies.
So am I the same, am I the same person now? No.
Yeah, you're not. Like, even I can feel you're right. Like, it takes a few months for you to kind of like change your perspective because you're part of a new system now. But I also feel like there's such a difference in how women write and how men write. Like, if you and I, like, we will write about Pakistani experiences that we've experienced, however many years we lived in Pakistan as women. That perspective is very different from a man
Oh yeah.
writing about experiences, right? Like, I feel like a lot of books that I've read, which unfortunately there was this one year I was just focused on reading Pakistani books, that they're just not very true. Like, men will write about women's experiences. Like, no, you don't get a say on this. Like, you don't get to decide what
You don't know what actually happened,
you
how
don't
it
know.
happens.
But at the same time, I find like the women also write from a perspective where they're trying to not really sink deep, but it's just very surface level. Like they will talk about like mental health only because they think it needs to be mentioned because it's the new and upcoming thing. Like there's no digging in deep. And like the one author that will always say like, want to read Pakistani books, start with Bapsi Sidhwa. She's the most authentic Pakistani voice there is, even though she has been like, she is an expat and she lives in North America as well. But it's also like her writing from the point of view of her own community. She's not trying to be something she's not. She's Parsi. She writes about the Parsi experiences in multiple of her books and how growing up in Pakistan during that time. And, you know, like it's very reflective of her. So if we write, like we can just write about what we experienced at that time. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean the space that we have created between now and then has changed what we experienced back then. Like
Yeah.
I go out at night here too because I feel like I grew up with like women shouldn't be out on the streets in the dark. And I carry that with me, right? So how much of myself have I left behind? Because I still get scared if someone's walking behind me too fast. And I'm like, okay, they're coming after me.
Yeah.
Let's okay.
Run
Like
for your life.
you you can't really like yeah, there's no like where are we then? Like we can't let go of those experiences because even when you're out your own, you kind of have this sense of fear that you need to get home before dark. Phone, like, make sure your phone is charged, you have your keys, you're ready.
This just reminds me of something. So when I came to the UK, I was living on my own. So when I was in Pakistan, I was obviously living with like my whole family. It was like a big household. And then I got married and it was me and my husband. And then I moved to the UK on my own. So it was the first time I felt like I'm an adult because now I'm making all my own decisions.
Yes.
So I'm deciding when I wake up, I'm deciding when I go to sleep, I'm deciding when I go out, I'm deciding when I stay in. So I was one day I was just I had a day off and I was like, okay, I want to go outside. And I just walked out and then I felt something's wrong. I need to tell someone I'm going out. I don't have my family here. I don't have my husband here. So who do I tell that I'm going? I have to tell someone. I can't just like walk out of the house on my own. And then it just struck me that this is such a Pakistani woman thought.
Yeah,
This is something a Pakistani woman will feel. She will feel the need to inform a higher authority, like a male figure or her parents or someone, that she's going out
yeah,
because that's how she has been brought
yeah.
up.
Yeah, you have to kind of, that's the thing, right? Like, you can't let go of those things,
Yeah,
because like you always feel like, and I feel like with me, the fear of like just being, because how much time do we spend out on the roads getting groceries for ourselves? There, none, right? Like,
never.
so the first time that you step out on your own, it is a little bit of a shock. Like, do I need to like tell someone, or like, okay, this is like a 10-minute walk. I do this walk on my own. Like,
Yeah.
paranoia sets in, and it's this weird thing where you realize like this is my life now. I have to acclimate to this. There's no telling anyone, like, your spouse is at work, and then you don't want to be like, okay, I'm going out. They'll be like, yeah, and just,
What do you want me to do with that information?
yeah, okay, like, I mean, and then that's the thing, like, if you ask them to be there, they will be there because they're also like from the same community. They understand
What
your
you mean?
fear and what you need. But at the same time, how do you let go of that? Like, I remember there was this one time I was walking home not that long ago, and I kind of felt like someone's walking in behind me really fast. And I was like, I didn't leave the house for another 2 days because I was like, I'm a little bit nervous about this. And then I was like, it's paranoia. It's not like like Western world is very safe, but at the
It's
same,
yeah.
you have to
When
do what.
someone tells me London isn't safe, I was like, I was brought up in Peshawar, so I know how to take care of myself.
Yes,
If
definitely.
someone close comes close to me, if someone tries to like snatch something or touch me inappropriately, I know how to handle that because I've been brought up in Peshawar.
That's so true, right? Like, I feel like we grew up with more awareness around like
About people around us and what
around
their
it.
motives could be.
Yeah, about our surroundings, and then if someone kind of looks at you a little bit differently, like there's something off about
Something's wrong. Something's off.
my yeah, yeah,
It's a radar that has been engraved into us.
into us, right? And how many men do you kind of think they'll even have a thought before stepping out of the house?
Never. Not
Nothing.
even in like it's not about Pakistan. Pakistani men would never think of informing anybody before they leave the house, because like growing up, I feel like my brothers wouldn't tell my
Hmm.
parents before they left, but I had to take permission before I'd leave because I'm a girl. I have to.
I
And
have.
now when I'm here and I don't have to, it just set in that I can actually do these things without taking permission and I can actually handle all this, which I
Yeah.
never thought I could.
Exactly. I feel like there's also this perception that, like, about this is kind of like wearing off the books topic, but the perception of like a single woman versus like now you're married, you have to do these things because you have to be acceptable to your in laws and your husband's family, even though they're like perfectly normal people. But you kind of have this thing built into your brain that you have to do this and you have to do that to be kind of looked at differently. And it's like you can be yourself and you don't have to live by anyone else's expectations because you
Because there's gonna come a time if you are trying to be someone to fit into someone's expectation of the perfect daughter-in-law or wife, then there's gonna come a point in your life where you can't. I
do
mean,
it.
you can't do it anymore because if you're all humans, we have like a tolerance level. If you're trying to be someone you're not, there's gonna come a time where you can't be
You
that
can,
person. You'll
yeah.
just have to be yourself then. So might as well be that from the very beginning.
Yeah, because like how much like you can't. That's the thing. It's same with the YouTube comments, same with the videos, same with your life. Like you can't cater to everyone. Like
Yeah.
you are like, and you are who you are in different situations. Like you might not be exactly the most accepted person or in a different thing, but you can't really let go of the essence of who you are because we spend our lives in this body and in this mindset. Like you can't really change it for people around you.
Yep.
It's that with time and our experiences, like it changes differently because we have to grow up and we have to realize like you can go for a walk if you
Oh,
want to. Like you're running out of groceries, you don't have to rely on people to come to
would you
you.
imagine the people who are watching this actually they probably might be shocked as to why we are thinking like that. Why are these two Pakistani women talking about going outside? I mean, this was such a unique experience for us, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't for like a lot of people who grew up in other countries, but
Yeah,
it was for us.
it was for us, right? Because we don't go outside
No,
on
unless we have to.
unless we have to. But I also feel like, it's kind of a thing where it's something that we have to also keep in mind that like the rest of the world is not as safe as we think it is. It's kind of, I
Yep.
feel like, and you also come in with a little bit of a bubble because you're told like bahar ki duniya mein to itna khatra nahi hai. Like you
Mm.
like
Oh no, it's unsafe in London.
yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's the same where there's a huge population, right? Like, there's like the extreme weathers here. Like I was just telling you before we started our chat, like it's -21. I'm not daring to step out of the house today. But like the number of homeless people that you see, like on the streets in this weather, like it's
Mm.
there's
Heartbreaking, and then something you wouldn't expect in like a first world country as well.
for sure. Yeah,
I feel like I probably am seeing the same amount of homeless people in London as I was seeing back home,
yeah,
and it's actually shocking because this is like a welfare state. The government is supposed to provide for these homeless people, and yet there are homeless people begging on the streets. I mean, what's happening?
yeah. So it's just like our perception also changes because we think we're going to a better world, and then when you come here, like yes, it's safer in a lot of ways. Like there's definitely services that you can use, but at the same time, like your bubble is a little bit popped because I still wouldn't leave the house on my own after like dark. It's just something that's like I'm not
Um,
sure that
I
safe.
have to, Nashwa. My shifts finish like in the middle of the night, and I'm so scared. But I Uber home. I'm like, I'm not taking that risk.
Yeah. So how do you commute? Like, do you take the tube?
That's another thing, I was like having this luxurious life in Dubai. I had my own car. I was driving everywhere. And then I come to London and I feel like the country just slapped me straight on the face. It's like, go in the bus and take the train. No more cars for you.
No more
So,
cars.
yeah, public transport all the way.
Yeah, same. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. But yeah, this is also like the fact that we didn't have this is also like we are so used to having our
We're
own.
so used to having our own cars and like
Yeah,
a personal driver at home
yeah.
and someone to take you wherever you want anytime.
But yeah, but this is I feel like it's definitely like it adds a layer of like hassle where you have to think about your trains, and I'm always on my phone looking up.
I
And
hate doing that.
but at the same time, it's also freeing. Like if I decide it's Friday, if I decide to go to a bookstore, like I
Yeah.
can take a bus to the bookstore.
Pros
Like
and cons.
pros and cons. Like you have to. Yeah, you have to. You don't have to wait for anyone to kind of like
Yeah. Sometimes in Pakistan, you have to wait for someone to come and then take you. Should we read through the comments? I feel like we've been ignoring the comments.
Yeah, we've just been having a really good time talking to each other after so long.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been to Pakistan and I must honestly admit that I do love the culture and people around there. Kamal Jasal.
Oh, thank you. It is a lovely place. Like we grew up there. We have a lot of
I'm I love Pakistan. I miss it so much as well. I mean, it's just that when you, I feel like, grow up, you see both sides of the picture.
definitely, definitely.
What's the other comments? Hey there, best wishes and lots of love to both of you from Malaysia. I love reading and traveling around places. I tend to get my collection of books from Kinokuniya, Malaysia. I loved that bookstore. Do you have it in Canada?
I don't have it in Canada, but I've been to the original Kinokuniya in Japan. It was amazing. It was just
Oh, you've been to Japan, Nashwa. You're amazing.
I just loved it so much. Like I was there for work. I was only there for like maybe a week and a half, and there was a point like I want to go to Tokyo, so that I can go to Kinokuniya. And like
Mm.
the in Japan, like you probably see it in England and I see it in Canada. People reading on the trains.
Yep.
Um, it's really nice to see, right? I'm always kind of seeing like what people are reading. But in Japan, like it's a whole different culture. Like this Kinokuniya I went to, it's probably like 6 or 7 stories, and like at least six of them Japanese, and they have like one English section. And it's such a huge reading culture there. Like
Really, I wasn't expecting that in Japan. I was like, it was more like K-pop and like makeup, and I didn't think there would be like a reading culture there as well. But good
yeah,
for them.
it's mostly because like they have such a huge manga culture, like with the young kids.
Oh,
Mangas, like you would see them, like mangas come through magazines, like you get one installment every week, and now they've turned into these like TV shows, and there's so much of them that is played in my house because my husband is kind of really into anime, and I just don't get it. I'm just like, you do you. But like like it's such a huge thing, and that's kind of where it started from, right? And it's such a huge industry there that you would see like teenagers like really into like
but that's good. I mean, they're whether it's manga or comics or anything, it's good to get
it is,
people to hold a book and
yeah,
be
yeah,
intrigued by a book, and
definitely,
it
definitely,
starts from there. I mean, it
yeah.
started with for me as well. I mean, I was reading comics all the time.
Okay, we have another comment. The archaic way. I moved away from my home city for 3 years and then returned. I went through such cultural shock, I guess, and felt weird being back. And I was super nervous. I feel like I'll imagine I'll be the same way when I go back. Like,
I've actually felt like that when I went back, because I went back in the middle to work there for like 6, 7 months, and I would just take my car out, like my father's car out, and my parents would be like freaking out and calling me, "Where did you go?" I was like, "Well, I just went to do that," and they were like, "You can't just go out without telling us and without like, I'll go with you. You can't just go alone." I was like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm in the car," and they were like, "No, someone's gonna steal the car or someone's gonna kidnap you, or you just can't do that." And
yeah,
that's when I was like, "Whoa,
yeah.
Risha, you've forgotten stuff."
We're so sheltered there, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
And
I
it
mean,
sort of felt really nice as well. Like I was like, oh, someone really cares, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they wanna make sure I'm okay, and they wanna go with me, like for everything I need, and then bring me back home safe and sound. But it was definitely a cultural shock going back.
I think we just like in such a short amount of time when you have to be independent, like you adapt really quickly.
Yep.
All right, so someone's asking, what are your three favorite classics?
Hmm.
A very interesting question. I'm sure Dirisha has read hundreds by now, so you narrow it down to three.
When I look back on like the classics, which are my favorite, I would say it has to be the ones which make me happy, because happiness is like my top priority now.
It should live to
It
be
should
happy.
be. It should be. Books should make you should either learn something or like really enjoy the process of reading them. So my favorite book would be Persuasion by Jane Austen.
Mhm.
Um, I should pick a Thomas Hardy book there. I would say Far from the Madding Crowd.
Right.
Even though loved Hard Times, but I feel like that book made me smile a lot. So I'll pick that. And my third favorite classic, The Plague. That would be the book which obviously didn't make me smile, but I
It would be
grew I grew up
smiling.
after reading that book.
People are dying. I'm having fun.
Yeah. But it was like the best time to read the book was during the pandemic, and because I read it during the
Yeah.
lockdown, it just had a more profound impact on me.
Yeah. I feel like you mentioned Persuasion. I'm just going to take my phone and show you like a copy that I got. Sorry. I hope. But I hope this is not too awkward for people who are watching me move around. Um,
So pretty.
and the best thing is that it comes with like all the letters. So
What?
here, this is the
Oh,
letter from the captain to
oh wow. That's
and
awesome.
handwritten, very authentically folded letter, and it has like these bits and pieces. And I spent a good amount of money on this book, so I was like, so I got this. I wanted to get one of these books for my friends, and she likes Pride and Prejudice. So I got Pride and Prejudice for her. I was like, why should I not make myself happy since we're talking about happiness? And this is like one of those books which kind of comes with all the bits and pieces and, folded in letters and maps and in
That's
the
so cool.
art. I was like, this is an investment
Yeah.
that I would.
Every time I'm gonna look at this book, every time I open it, it's gonna bring a smile on my face. So might as well.
Might as well, might as well. So this is what I've been doing. I've been just enjoying Amazon because I didn't have access to it before.
Oh yeah.
So
Are you
Amazon.
using like audiobooks there as well?
I'm using audiobooks from the library. Like I used to
Oh.
have an app that I used to pay for, but then when I signed up from the library, they have their own app. So I still listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I feel like over the time my concentration, I zone out. Like I used to be really good with listening to audiobooks, like I could concentrate really hard. And now I feel like I definitely prefer like either ebooks or like physical books because my mind is not there.
Like
Like
a combination of both. Like I need the paper in front of me while I'm listening, so I
yeah.
keep looking at what what they're saying.
Yeah. So I used to listen to audiobooks like when I was doing chores or cleaning up or cooking
Mm.
and that. But now I feel like I can't pay attention because I feel like that also requires a certain. And if I'm doing that, I also want to enjoy the cleaning process. Like I have this thing about me where I love cleaning. It's just like I can't leave a messy. Even if I have to leave the house, I'll make sure that it's nice.
We're the same. We're the same. I just love to clean.
I,
Just make sure everything is clean and tidy.
yeah, I make sure that my husband's not home so I can clean because I feel like then he's just there and like, should I help you? He's like, no, thank you. Just um, fair thing. But then also like the way that I clean is very intense. So I love cleaning and I just make sure that the house is clean before so I want to enjoy that too. And sometimes like with an audiobook, I feel like
You
I
get
just,
distracted by the
if I want to listen to music, have some show playing in the background, like, so that I don't have to pay attention.
concentrate, yeah, on the book.
Sounds
When do you take the time out during the day to read?
I usually read like because it's different for me. Like I get my work done at 5, and then because I'm on my own for quite a few hours before like I have company, so that's my time. I finish work, I do the cooking, I do the cleaning, and then I have like an hour before bed before my husband comes home where I'm just like, okay, I can take this time to read. But I've also started doing this thing that when he's watching anime, like I just open my book because I'm like, I'm not paying attention to that. It's just a very recent thing because I feel like you would probably experience this when you move in together with someone. You kind of want to be a part of all their activities. Like you watch TV together and you watch,
Yeah,
and so guys, like that's not. Yes, you can enjoy TV and movies together, but you're not the same person, right? Like I'm never
yeah.
going to anime, and even though like he likes to read, it's not the same books as me, so it's kind of one of those things where you have to figure out. But mostly like I find like 30 minutes or an hour like before bed to kind of just recharge. I've built a routine around that like at night it's more comforting. And sometimes like I feel like even if I don't have that much work during a day, I still can't read because then I'm constantly checking my phone, like my Slack messages,
Yeah,
my mind is very occupied. So there's a question for you, Risha.
yeah. I just quickly read that. I don't know if you've already said this, but I'm curious as to what were the circumstances which made you move from Dubai to England. That's a long story. It is a long story. Well, I the main reason is because I wanted to work as a doctor and I couldn't do that in Dubai. So
Is
that's
there
why.
like specific reason that you can talk about, like why not? Is it laws? Is it like
It was the licensing exams and stuff. I wasn't eligible because of my experience, and that was basically the reason. And there are a lot of doctors who are living in the Gulf who cannot get a license. Especially, I know a lot of my friends who got married and moved to Gulf states, but then couldn't practice medicine because they don't have the license enough experience to get a license to work.
right, right? Yeah,
And then
makes
that
yeah.
was the reason, basically.
There, long
Long
story
story short.
for women.
Yeah.
It's for our careers, the things we do.
Yep. Okay. Is there another comment?
No. I'm just reading through them. Or
Oh,
I
you
don't.
haven't told us your favorite classics, Nasha.
I'll really have to. I haven't read as many as you have. Definitely haven't. Don't have that kind of.
Doesn't matter. Just
Okay. Well, I have a really pretty copy of Persuasion, so I. But this is only because like of the letter. Like I'm biased towards Persuasion
oh, I
because
love that letter. It's the
let's see. I like North and South. I really like North and South.
Mhm.
Like North and South is one of those books that's kind of more deeper. I really like John Thornton as a character. I feel like the whole dynamic with Margaret because Thornton's is one person who I sympathize with more rather than Margaret. And I love the show also. Like I feel like the show
Yeah,
is so it's done
it's amazing.
good show. So I like North and South. Second one, I'll keep Persuasion, and I also read this Brazilian classic. It was called The Life and Something of. I have the book with me. The Life and Times of Brás Cubas, which is basically about like a person who is writing his memoirs from the grave, about like
Okay.
his life. And I wish like I had a better analysis of it because I read it last year, but it's basically like he's writing from his grave and he's going through the events in his life, and it's kind of like a very comical look into his life, and it's about and it's set. It's interesting because it's set in Brazil and it's taught in mostly like Brazilian schools, and it's kind of like one of those books where he breaks the third wall and is talking to the reader, like insulting the reader. And I found that like a very interesting book. I bought it because I wanted to reread it. I initially read it like on Kindle, and I didn't really get the feel for it. But then I got a copy here, and I was like, I
Reread
definitely
it.
reread it. But I should probably look up the name in case.
Does this happen with you where you just forget
But
the names of books?
yes, I feel like especially with something like this, which I've read a while ago, like I'm just like something. And if you ask me
I
currently,
know that book.
I
I
don't
know. I
know.
remember that story. I've read that book.
Yeah,
Well, unless if I have the physical copy, I will remember it. But they're
yeah,
like books which I've read years ago, which I don't have physical copies of, and then I'm like, wait, did I read it? Was
yeah.
it my imagination?
So this one is called The Posthumous Memoirs of Bras Cubas by Joaquim Maria Machado. So that's the one I was talking about. But yeah, I don't like if you ask me what are you currently reading, I normally like have to think about it. Like I was like, let me check my Goodreads or let me pull out my phone because it just so happens that as much as we like to read, like I can't retain that information off the top of my head because like, I know I'm reading something, but I'm usually reading more than one thing. So I'm just like,
Yeah, that's
well,
probably why.
what do I say?
Thank you, Kamal Jasal. I would love to see more videos posted by you, please. I would love to post more as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like every time someone's asking me like, "What's your favorite book?" I was like, "I don't know." Like
Yeah.
this,
I mean, this question just threw me off as well now because I'm like, what's my favorite classic?
no, right? Like you have to think about it.
yeah.
Um, but I feel like people ask me like, "What's your favorite book of all time?" And I'm like, it varies from time to time. It depends on what I'm reading. I just can't stick to.
Mm.
There's
I
not.
think because you read a lot of books as well, so that's why. Like, which one do you tell them? which one? Which
Like
one do I share?
this sounds really arrogant, but I don't read bad books, and that's because I have perfected the art of DNF. Like if I'm not feeling it, it's gone. It's just it's
Yeah,
not.
I really need to work on
To
starting to
feel something
DNF.
like if you like I stopped feeling guilty about it because I was like this is not worth my time. I
I've
just
actually become really picky with buying books now because I know I will not DNF it, so it's gonna stay with me for like years. So might as well pick really carefully which books I'm going to read, and then thank you. I'm looking really nice.
you are.
I just did
Feel like-
makeup before meeting Nashua.
yeah, and I woke up so it's just like I don't even
I was asking you to film like at I didn't even know the time difference. I was like, let's film at 9 in the morning. And you're like Risha, it's be 5 a.m. in the morning.
you I want to talk to you but I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. for you.
I was like, nah, anytime is fine. I was just throwing in a random time.
Yeah, no. Like the time difference, it's you're 5 hours ahead of me right now, and
Yep.
I am Pakistan is 9 hours ahead of me. So
What are your thoughts on Dickens versus Tolstoy?
um, the only Dickens that I've read from start to finish would be A Christmas Carol and
Mm-hmm.
very close. So this question's not for me.
My thoughts are like, I saw this documentary. It was like a video where people were doing like a huge debate on Tolstoy versus Dickens. So so Dickens is like British, Tolstoy is Russian, so completely opposite opposite kinds of men. And then I feel like Dickens' writing has a lot of finesse. So he has a big story, but he does a really good job of like writing each chapter beautifully, and then it's like a perfect meal. Like there's like a starter and appetizer and everything. It's like a full meal,
Right.
but it's just like superficial. It doesn't dive deep into the actual problems. But Tolstoy, he just like dives in. He's everywhere. He's like there's no like it's not a pretty picture to read, but the things he talks about are like thought provoking. So I feel like they shouldn't be compared. They're not the same. They're not the same.
What's the saddest book you've read?
I think I avoid sad books. I'm like, is it sad? I'm not gonna read it. I'm that person who's looking for happy books and happy movies. So the saddest book. I
Because you
mean,
also will show you the ugly, life.
I think I think I started a book when I was really young, Lord of the Flies.
Right. Yeah.
It was a bit traumatizing for me. I left it, but I want to read
You
it now. As
have
an, I was like, I did. I think I DNF'd it. Yes, but I remember I was like, this is too much for me. I can't.
Yeah.
Is it? Is it the same? Have you read Lord of the Flies?
I've tried, and even then, it's just like I'm not interested in a bunch of boys bullying each other. Like it's just not
Yes.
my story. But the book that I'm actively avoiding because I've heard it's extremely sad is A Little Life, and
Oh,
it's pretty much on all of BookTube, and there's like vlogs of people reading it and just devastated cries, and it's apparently really really heartbreaking, and it's kind of has a lot of like triggering things happening all to the
is it
same.
about mental health or what is it about?
It's about these four guys, and all of them are from different backgrounds, and one of them has been suffering through his entire life, like sexual abuse, physical abuse, disabilities, things like that. And it's just like punch after punch after punch. And when I was in Pakistan, I did buy a copy, but I never got myself to read it. And now I feel that I'm watching of people just breaking down while reading the end of the book. I'm just like, I don't
Is
think
it?
I need this kind of stress in my life where I'm just not recovering for like one of my friends read it and she's like, it took me a month to just lose the book from my mind. And I was like, I don't want to live in that kind of sadness. Like,
Nah.
so that's one
Me neither.
I've
I feel
read.
like with my line of work, I already see a lot of people in pain. So I don't wanna. I mean, it's like every day I see people crying, in pain, suffering. So do I want to come back home and then read about a person in pain who has suffered? No, I don't want that. So I want to like actively avoid books, which I do want to discuss like problems and social problems and stuff, but I don't want to like
Be traumatized
जिसको
by books.
उर्दू में कहते हैं ना हावी करना अपने ऊपर क्यों खुद पे हावी कर so I don't want to do that.
हाँ सर पे सवार करना नहीं that's the thing right like even if like my line of work is not as it's different from yours mine is more like mental writing and kind of like coming up with different things but at the same time at the end of it I'm so tired that like
Hmm.
why would I stress
Why
myself.
do you?
I want my entertainment to be engaging and entertaining. Like especially with TV shows, I don't think I can watch serious TV. We tried watching The Handmaid's Tale, and after 3 episodes, 4 episodes, I was like, this is too sad for me. Like this is another level of depression that I don't want to think about.
Just see that book. I have a Handmaid's Tale with me, and I know it's going to be like heart wrenching and sad, but also, but am I ready for it now? No, I'm not. I feel like it's going to need a lot more from me, which I'm willing to give it at the moment.
think with the way that it's written is that like even when you're in the middle of the story, you won't be emotion that like it won't affect like because the way that it's written like this is our life now and this is what's happening. Like it's not meant to draw like a lot of emotions from you in a way where the you know I think the way that it's written is that it might not be as devastating as you think.
Okay, so the show is more terrible.
The show is because it's all visual, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes think like you have to imagine it yourself and
And you don't imagine it as bad as they show it on the
yeah,
show.
the show is just like the whole like there's a bluish hue over the characters and like everybody's looking really sad. Like it's just another level of so I feel like the visual violence kind of like or like the kind of society that there is like it's definitely it hits you harder when you watch it. But I feel like when you're reading it, you slowly build up to it. Like there's like short chapters where there's descriptions and there's like everything is not written out for you to read. Like there's a lot of like guesswork, like, oh, this is what this means, right?
Hmm.
It's like so I feel like the book is a little bit detached, but it's very effective. So I feel like you might not find it very devastating, but like if you read like 15-20 pages, then you'll figure out the tone.
Okay.
And
So I have the show on my watch list, but I am not going there. So it's been there since it came out, but I'm not watching it because I know I'm going to feel feels and I don't want to feel feels. But
yeah.
the one book I remember which made me cry, like physically cry, was Harry Potter. So the last book, I was like so emotional when that last book came out. So I was literally crying when one character was dying and then crying again when the other character died. So I feel like because of the build up of those books being launched, I was totally invested in the story. So
Yeah.
Hedwig died and I'm crying, and then this twin dies and I'm crying, and I'm just crying on everything.
That's because I feel like those books were like, oh, we followed the series throughout a number of
Yeah,
years. I
yeah.
feel like I at least haven't felt that kind of long.
Attachment since then.
Like, it's been a while. Like, I still like to read and you still like to read and we read what we want. But वो एक जो passion था, like, there was this craze about this is what everyone's doing. It kind of felt like a movement. Like, I've never been that.
Yeah, I think we were teenagers, probably that's why. The passions were higher, the emotions were like next level. It wasn't,
Yeah.
we have sobered up.
But like, do we still? And like, my point is, कि, like, the releases were anticipated, right? Like, there was like a huge anticipation about the next one, and I don't know if even if I started following like a fantasy series now, like, do I still anticipate it that much? Like, or will I just be like, yeah, fine, it'll come, and then when it comes, I'll read it. Like,
Yeah. I feel like there are like series and books in the young adult genre at the moment where people are anticipating releases and stuff, but we're maybe not a part of that. And when you go on Book Talk and see these
yeah,
young people really passionate about these like books, which or like series. So they're waiting for a new release, and
yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I bought A Little Life twice, but I ended up selling them, unhauling them. I feel like I'm too scared of triggering books. I feel like that's fair. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Like you have to preserve your own mental health. Um, do you girls prefer audiobooks over the physical copies? If yes, then how is it different than watching a Netflix adaptation or a movie based on some books? Um, I really like audiobooks, but I feel like I don't have the concentration for them anymore, and they're different from Netflix because the books are the books, right? Like it's just someone
Mhm.
reading the adaptations. I find are a little bit different, and they add their own elements to it.
I feel
But
like I'm just reading from physical books because I don't have access to books. Well, I do have access, I just don't have the money.
yeah,
So I need a library card so I can get free books. But I don't want to invest like £8 in one audiobook when I can just get a physical copy, which will stay with me
yeah,
physically.
yeah, and different things work for different people's like right. Like I don't think like reading audiobooks is not reading. Like that's just I don't find that accurate.
No, I mean it's definitely reading because I was reading a lot of audiobooks during the lockdown, and they helped me because I felt like the world was silent so I could listen to the audiobooks. But now that the world is back
Wise.
on, switched on, it's just too loud.
Yeah, Risha's wisdom. The world was silent, so I could listen to audiobooks. My is the Iliad, first video I watched by Risha last year. Okay, Risha.
I hope you finish it and enjoy it because I've still not finished the Iliad. And it's actually one of my most viewed videos as well on my channel. Me talking about the Iliad, and
Now you know,
I'm
like
going to go back one day.
one day.
Going to happen.
We have hope in. We believe you.
It's going to happen. You know, we've been live for 80 minutes now.
I see
That's
that.
more that's more than an hour.
That's more than an hour, and some of us have work to do because it's 12 in the afternoon. I'm just chatting away, ignore
Nah,
because
it's
Friday.
my day off, so
Thank you, Risha, for scheduling it on your day off, so I get to be about. No, no, I pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed it,
I
and
really enjoyed it. I wish I could give you like a virtual hug. I missed you.
yeah, if you ever come to Canada, we'll hang out, and if I ever come to England,
Yes, please. That's an unspoken thing that has to happen anytime you're visiting here, or if we end up visiting Pakistan at the same time. I mean,
yeah,
anywhere.
anywhere, anywhere. I feel like we've talked about it when you were in Pakistan, but I feel like we just couldn't coordinate it like we could.
Nah. But the thing is, when you go back home, it's just like 1 week or 2 week, and then you have like so many things to do during that time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because you're trying to pack in everything within a 3 week.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you for the people who stayed live with us. We hope you enjoyed this really, really random catch up about books and life and growing up and sobering up, calming down.
But I'm gonna try and see if I can post this somewhere because I don't want to lose it. But if I'm not successful, I do apologize.
Again, we'll do it again. But
Okay.
yeah, it was great talking to you, and
Thank you,
inshallah,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you, Nashwa. Bye. How do I end it?
I have no idea. I mean, I leave it up.
Okay. I'll try.
Okay.
Okay.